because I know from MyCladders in our business and how we do, we know that it's the end result that the architect is trying to achieve. We understand that, especially on a high-end designer home, like architectural home. And so we understand that. We're not just going to go, let's just put some quad gutter on it.
Hey everyone, welcome to Constructing Out the Podcast. I'm Josh, and today Kenny and I are going to be talking a little bit about improving specification documents with things like what is the purpose of the product you're specifying, having a deeper look into the actual product you are specifying, and making sure you don't just copy and paste specification items. Also, just wanted to remind you that we are now on Spotify as well as here on YouTube, so if you could head over and give us a follow, it really helps us out. And as always, if you have any questions about your ColourBond or construction journey, don't forget to leave them in the comments below. Cheers, guys.
Just letting the people know at home, or people listening to the podcast, we don't starve.
Yeah, that's it.
Certainly, we're well fed. So we're having our coffee. Today's been fun.
It's been an interesting morning.
It's raining outside and we don't need to stress, do we?
Yeah, that's it. Not on the roof, unlike other people. Perks have been working in the office on a day like this.
No, I was meaning that we're not stressing because our roofs don't leak.
Oh, this is that too. That too.
I used to go to bed every time it rained. I'd stress that I was going to get a phone call from someone. Early days, when you're learning things. We had 23 employees, and to try and keep the quality control high on 23, and majority of those people weren't people that trained. They're just people hired to get a job done. And we had just problem after problem after problem. So since we've come back to training up every individual person and growing the team slowly over a number of years, I can go to sleep at night while it's pouring down rain and enjoy the sound of rain rather than expecting a phone call or photos.
In the morning going, oh no, it's all destroyed. Which no one wants. No one wants a leaky roof. Spend the money on your roof and don't have a leak.
So yeah, that's that. So I renamed the podcast. So right now, this weekend, today I put on the new YouTube channel, the podcast. I've created the channel, so all this stuff will be up on there. And it's only 13 podcasts. So today the other one's being uploaded. But hey, I'll stop talking because we've got a limited amount of time because we've been focusing on coffee and almond croissants. Yeah,
and other businessy related stuff. So let's crack it off, eh? Hey everyone, welcome to Constructing Out the Podcast. I'm Josh, that's Kenny, stuffing his face. And today, we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the things that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis when we're trying to price up these projects for our clients. Specifications.
Yeah, well, you mean I've got to deal with you losing your plot?
Yeah, pretty much, Yep, that's right. So, we're going to kick it off with tip number one.
Well, first of all, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When you talk about specifications, what are you actually talking about?
Talking about specifying the right products for the purpose that they're being used for. So, I want this roof to be corrugated iron.
Okay,
but mate, your roof's 3 degrees. You can't do that.
Yeah. So, like gutters.
Gutters. I want leaf gutter my gutter. But they specify. They don't actually state it in the way that they want. They're like, I want leaf hail guards on my sumps for my box gutters. You don't have box gutters on your job. Why have you written it in the specification?
So a specification is an item which is I guess a description of something that's required for a project. Yeah,
it's a big document that basically states I want these particular products, the standards in which you need to adhere to, which everyone the standards are the standards. That's everyone's got to follow them anyway.
If we're talking landscaping, you say I want to have zoysia grass.
Yeah.
So it would state for the grass zoysia grass.
Yeah.
And that would be a specification.
I have specified Caesar stone bench tops in my kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. So a specification is a description of an item which is essentially a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
All right, take it away.
Much, yeah. Take it away. So the first thing we're going to cover is like what is the actual purpose of the product that you've specified. So like have you picked, for example, like I started with corrugated iron, but your roof is 3 degrees. Well, that product doesn't actually suit that purpose. You've got to do a little bit more research into what you're trying to do. Like, okay, I've got this big, nice, I want this curved ridge cap kind of thing, like a curve like a project that we were looking at earlier in the week.
Yeah, kind of like where you've got a flat section on either sides and it curves over with the sheet running continuously.
So I want 0.42 corrugated iron roof sheeting, but it's got this big curved detail so that it curves from one side to the other. Okay, so depending on how tight the curve radius is, depends on whether or not you can do that. So
can you curve 0.42?
If you spring curve it, so meaning it's got a mass, like the radius of that is like 12 meters.
Yep. Okay, so I don't mean so specifications back to you.
So if you've specified this, but you've written in your document, I want 0.42, but my curve radius is 3 meters. Well, you can't do that. You need to have 0.6 curving quality material, and it has to go through another roll forming machine to curve it to suit the template that you make. And then there's been a couple of commercial projects that we've looked at where they've done similar sort of thing, and they've used a particular product, like an aluminium roof sheeting, and it's minimum 3 degree pitch. The whole roof's 3 degrees. So at the ridge, it's got the big curved ridge, but then either side of that ridge is like a 40 meter roof run. You're not going to get a sheet at 40 meters to come drive down the road. So
I think you're at about 35 millimeters, and that's if you're
if you're lucky.
The countryside.
And that's so if you're trying to spring curve this whole thing, it's like, oh well, you can end lap the sheets, can't you? It's like you can, but at minimum pitch, it's going to cause the potential for leaks to happen. You really should have an expansion, especially 40 meters long. It's longer than the sheet's going to expand and contract.
Yeah. So in that specification, what's your tip there to the architect or
to the architect is make sure that you actually look into how these products actually perform in the instances that you've actually designed.
Yep.
So,
and where would they go? For example, that exact scenario where you've got a flat sheet either side and you've got a curve. Where would the architect go to find that information? From
the roll formers. Okay. From the whoever they need to. So, for example, I want Lysart custom wall roof sheeting. Okay, so talk to Lysart and go, hey, what can I achieve using this particular product? And then you'll get all the information that you need in order to sort of better create a spec based on manufacturer's recommendations. And then it comes back to us, and then we can turn around and go, hey, yes, that's what the manufacturer said, but from our experience installing the product, that's probably this particular scenario that you've chosen to design. It's not going to work in much the same way, etc.
So essentially,
and give our advice on how they could still achieve what they want to achieve, but in reality.
Yeah, and Lysart, for example, has a great architectural connection. So pardon me. So they have a rep there that will deal with architects, especially like in all the states, especially to make sure that things are specified right. So that's essentially what they need to do. So on something tricky like that.
Yeah, and then other things to have a look at. Like, are you selecting the product just because the purpose you're using it for is written in the name? For example, trim wall from Lysart.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
I can use that for wall sheeting. You can use it for wall sheeting, but it's 0.35. It's very thin material. It's used for fencing. And from working on the factory floor back in the day, you can pretty much just rip that by hand. You don't need any additional tools to rip that. So if you're putting that on your wall, it's going to be very flimsy. And if you've got a secure building, like for projects that we priced for defence, you can specify in addition to that, like, I want this trim wall product, but I want tamper-evident fixings on my wall cladding. Like, tamper-evident fixings are still going to be in place once I've ripped your sheeting off the wall.
So just to allow everyone at home to know this, trim wall is essentially a 0.35 version of 0.42 trim deck.
Correct.
They're the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
and it's more expensive as well, trim wall, because it's the thinner material. It's not as readily available. So,
and this is education for the architects, and if they know that this is, because they see, you get a manual, you get a catalogue essentially from. Let's use Lysart. Lysart's easy.
Yeah, and it will got a nice reference book.
Our wall cladding options. Oh, trim wall. That's what I want. And they'll see that instead of seeing trim deck, and they
which also states for roofing and walling purposes. Whereas trim wall, because it's 0.35, can't be used on a roof, even though it looks like trim deck. It can only be applied to the walls.
I think though in this situation, the architects or the designer, whoever's specifying it, they're not going about it in a poor way. They're trying to do a really good job because they're going, okay, this one here, this is specifically for the wall.
Yeah.
They're just not educated in knowing that, hey, there's two different products. And unless you're in the roofing industry yourself and specialize in this stuff, you wouldn't know either. So
true.
in relation to that, and I don't know if you're going to bring this up afterwards, trim wall is more expensive and trim deck is cheaper than each other.
Correct, yeah.
So when you're quoting a job and they want trim wall and it's 0.35, I'm like, well, that I need to make sure, and I've been told this by architects before, always allow for the worst case scenario. So the worst case scenario, they want 0.35. So you've got to allow, and if that's $8 a square metre more than trim deck, well, we're not going to be able to quote the price because someone else goes, we'll just put it in at 0.42 because we know that that's what it is. So we can get a cheaper price in. However, it doesn't actually comply to what the architects asked for.
Yeah, which is what we, like, I always do my best to basically, like, this is your worst case scenario. This is everything 100% as per you've written down in your specification. And this is why we've decided to do this podcast today, to sort of educate that, yes, like, if you go the route of doing everything 100% to specification, you are going to end up with a more expensive quote. And then you have to sort of have the conversation with people and go, what are our options to kind of change things? Simple fix in this situation is, well, if we just install 0.42 trim deck, it's A, cheaper, B, it's a better performing product, which equals the result of bringing your price down significantly.
Which means that the tender is going to be of a higher value to the end client.
Yeah.
So but it was the end client who engaged the architect. The architect has put the specification together. So it's everyone has a turn here in making sure that they do the best thing for the end client. So in relation to back to this one where the trim wall, the architect's not knowing everything about this, that, and everything else. They're trying to do a good job. Sometimes contact a roofing company, contact Lysart and say, hey, what's the difference between this and this? And they'll tell you. So like we've just told you in that situation. All right.
Yeah. And then sort of finish up this off, like, you've got hips and valleys on your roof. If expect that your quote is going to be a lot higher in the material department, because you can't just take an offcut of trim from this corner and put it on this corner. It's not necessarily going to work out the way that you kind of want it to.
With trim deck, you mean?
With anything that's not corrugated iron.
Yeah.
Trim deck, anything trapezoidal is or square in profile is not going to cut the same way as corrugated iron.
You lose about 20% from what I found. I did a takeoff the other day using standing seam on a roof with hip and valley. And yeah, you've got to allow that overrun and the extra cutting, and you lose that whole triangle. So yeah.
And so, which leads us into our next point: look deeper into what the actual product is that you're specifying. So, for example, like if you're looking for you want this particular gutter, it's the way that it looks great.
Are we going to go down? Is it Queenscroft? Is this what we're going
to
talk
this
about?
Is Queenscroft, and
Yep.
back to another defence project that I've.
Okay.
So the Queenscroft project, they wanted Lysart Colonial Gutter, which is only available in WA.
And we're in Queensland.
Yes.
And yeah.
So it's only roll formed in in WA.
Yep.
So in order for us to get the product, we have to get a price from Lysart in WA. So then we have to set up another account with WA. But then in order for us to get it from WA to Queensland, we need to transport it. In order for us to get a price for transport, we need to know the exact dimensions of the box in order of what's being transported, which was super fun. I'm like, this isn't going to work out. So there's
a lot of time and effort that goes in at this end going, it can't be done, but the client, that's what they want.
Yeah. So what I ended up doing was calling Lysart in WA and saying, hey, obviously it's going to be a really expensive exercise for us to try and get the Colonial Gutter from you guys in WA and then have it risk being coming on the transport from WA up to Queensland and being potentially damaged on the way, which is not going to work out good for anybody. So
imagine if it was damaged and you had to get one more piece or what have you.
It would just be a nightmare. So what I asked them to do was, can you just grab me a stop end and then get a piece of A4 paper, put the stop end on there, and then trace it.
Yeah.
And that will give me a 1-to-1 scale of what the gutter actually looks like.
Yep. So you're able to achieve
and then if you scan it through, it'll obviously come back as an A4 sheet of paper on a PDF. Email that to me. I can then email that to my fabricator, and they can put it together. And so we were able to actually create that gutter for the client.
Yeah, and in the end, it got so difficult they just went to quad gutter in the end for
the final building.
For the rest of it, yeah. So essentially, that one is talking about how specifying products which are easily available. I mean, not only is it, yes, you can get it from Western Australia.
Yeah,
yes, you can.
It's available from Lysart.
Look at the from a carbon. I'm not a greenie, but look at the expense of having to ship stuff from there to here. All the things that have to go with it. You could state, and this is what I would. If I'm not an architect, but if the architect was to specify a colonial gutter like this one, custom made, or approved alternative, then what you'd look at goes, okay, this is the style of that. All right, who has similar ones? Then in the quote you go, well, all right, we can allow for this and state that we allow for this in the quote, and then the builder can go on, and then you send it off for approval. And if they're happy with that, then they're happy with that. And because it's so, so it's more so being a little bit open from the architect's perspective, a little bit open to a bit of flexibility on. Because I know from MyCladders in our business and how we do, we know that it's the end result that the architect is trying to achieve. We understand that, especially on a high-end designer home, like architectural home. And so we understand that we're not just going to go, let's just put some quad gutter on it. Happy days. So anyway, I'm interrupting you.
No. So then the other side of things is we priced another defence project recently where they've specified we want Lysart 175 quad gutter, but we want it in a 316 stainless steel colour match to match the roof. So that's okay, cool. Yep, that's right. Super Dura is the stainless steel Colorbond colour in surf mist, the product. But Lysart don't just make 175 in Super Dura. It's not something that's available. It would be a custom ordered coil slit to thing, which is going to be expensive. And if you were to then go get it fabricated from a fabricator, again, it's going to also be expensive. So then you need to look at, is that finish being used for a particular purpose? Can I get away with something more readily available? Like the exercise with this 175 quad gutter, it was cheaper to get a 200 half round in just 316 stainless steel than it was to get this 175.
And the 200 half round
would do the job.
Would work
because they needed 150 downpipe drops in it anyway.
Yeah, but the capacity of the 200 would be a higher capacity.
Yeah,
than
would
the
be more than
175.
And it's for a sewage treatment plant. So there's obviously chemicals and stuff that are going to be around. So I can understand why they want the stainless steel. But I mean, you're saving $10 a linear meter just by going to the 200 half round gutter.
And a lot of reduced lead times and dramas.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then the other option is, can the properties of Ultra, which is the coastal product from Lysart, is that going to from BlueScope? Sorry, is that product going to be suitable for the same purpose? Okay, well, if that's the case, you can get away with using the Ultra, then that's 50% more cheaper than using stainless steel. So make sure that when you're looking at what you're specifying, what its purpose is for and why you've chosen the particular finish.
Well, it would be interesting on that note. There'd be lots of different other outcomes, and I'm sure that architects go through and they do look at all of these things. And maybe some architects could give some feedback of what is it that we're missing. Maybe because I would think if they specify something which is really difficult, well, like they specify stainless steel gutter mesh, but I've never installed stainless steel gutter mesh in my life. I've not. Yeah, all of the gutter mesh suppliers don't have a stainless steel gutter mesh. So
yeah, it's an element you can get, but you can do you can do some hail guards in stainless steel because that's a completely different product.
Totally
you can't
different.
do an eaves gutter mesh.
So there's lots of specifications that architects put out there which shouldn't say don't comply, but we just can't do or don't do. Whereas if we knew what the end result was that they're aiming for,
we can help them achieve that.
Yeah, getting that to them.
And so then that brings us into and this is something that more happens on commercial projects, is that it's just a copy and paste.
Oh, that's not just
specification.
that's not just commercial though. That's everything. Copy and paste. I'd like a Zincalume Colorbond roof, please.
Yeah. They're two different products.
Yeah. A Zincalume.
I would like 1 mil Zincalume spiral lock downpipes in a Colorbond colour. Expected finish Colorbond.
Let's talk about this Plainlands job, the Sophia College, and how in the plans it stated that they were to match the existing, or they were monument. However,
the finish was to match.
Yeah, finish was monument. However, the specification for the material was 1 millimeter thick spiral log Zincalume downpipes.
Downpipes, yeah.
So then we quoted that because then to do them in the Colorbond finish, they'd need to be powder coated. So for us to powder coat them, then there would be a different finish to
the painted the gal downpipe protectors, which would be hand painted. So
essentially, we go into it with the price point saying, okay, this is our offering. There's no painting allowed for in any of that. We've allowed the Zincalume 1 mil because it's not available in Colorbond. So you have your painters coming in to do that. So if it was, where could the architect improve on that? The architects could improve or help us more by stating a painted finish or powder coated finish. Because if it was a powder coated finish, then we allow for it to be a powder coated finish. Instead of saying it's a 1 mil Zincalume, but a monument powder coated finish, that's kind of like, so the builder ended up having to pay the painter because the painter didn't allow for it because the painter just assumed.
Yeah, it's all available in Colorbond, which it's not. Yeah,
because people aren't experts. People are experts in what they do, not in a general thing.
Yeah, and then back to like the copy and paste thing. I want all of my sumps in my box gutters for this project need to have leaf guards in it. Well, this project has no box gutters in it.
Yeah,
so do you want leaf guards on your eaves gutters? You haven't said that anywhere, but you stated that you want leaf guards to the sumps in your box gutters, which you don't have. So instead of just copying and pasting everything, look at what you actually have on your project and make the specification document bespoke to what's actually on site. Because otherwise you're just going to get people going like, well, I've added leaf guard on there for the eaves gutters. Well, we don't need that.
Yeah,
we don't need any of that. It's only for this.
There's a value add there that for the end client again, or for the builder, for someone. Because if you're quoting it, Josh, you're going to go in there and say, well, I better allow for the edge, the gutter mesh, and then you'll put that in the quote. But no one reads a quote.
No, that's
another podcast for another day.
Whole nother thing. Like,
so the copy and paste is definitely something that is over and over, and architects would know because they do it. Right?
And I think we've covered that in insulation. When we talked about insulation on one of the previous podcasts, like you've copied and pasted all these things, thinking that that's what needs to happen, but you've specified two competing systems. This system with roof raisers doesn't work. It's for purlins. You've got trusses. There's a different thing that you have to do in order to achieve what you want to achieve.
Yep.
And all someone's done is gone and copy and pasted everything into their specification document.
So creating a conflicting specification.
Yeah.
Very conflicting.
Yes.
Because they just do not work together.
You've just looked at it and gone, that's what I want to achieve. Paste, and this is the document. Okay, so then you've gone and said, okay, I need to put these roof raisers on this top hat. It's like you don't put top hat like the roof raisers on top hats. They're for purlins.
Yeah.
You just install a taller top hat.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
The advice there for the architect then would be what are you trying to achieve? Because all of it comes down to what are you trying to achieve? Like design is design, that's cool, right? You're trying to achieve a certain design. Yeah. But when it comes to things like insulation and gutter mesh, etc., you're trying to achieve something. So let's go to the insulation sides of things. If you were to go and send plans to, for example, Fletcher's Insulation or CSR Bradford's, you could send, because they're the two big ones.
Yeah.
You could send your plan, say, this is what I'm trying to achieve. Could you please specify a system for me, and I'll implement that on this. And then they can actually give you a laid out system that will work that you can put into your drawings.
They have it on CSR's website.
Yeah. So where it is for example, this one building at the school where they need to get a sound rating along with these ratings. They try to create this other thing. So yes, exactly. So there you go.
Yeah, they tried to
documentation.
They tried to achieve. They're trying to achieve a certain decibel reduction or whatever. But the way in which they've gone about specifying it would have ended up with them having a 50 mil air gap, which would totally destroy what they wanted anyway.
So the advice would be they needed to go and speak to someone.
Yeah, and then they also have you have the Section J document, which determines your energy efficiency and what your thermal rating needs to be done on your roof. So what I've done for our price was like, hey, this is how we can achieve the Section J, which we have to achieve. If we're going to install that roof, that's the documentation we have to install to meet that document.
And that's how you price that job. And still no one read the quote.
No. and then I've gone, well, normally in this situation, what we would install our roof to meet the Section J requirements, and then AcoustiGuard would be installed within the ceiling
and
to
then that
achieve
would be,
that result.
That would be done from a different trade apart to...
Yeah, would be done by the ceiling guys or whatever. And then there was a lot of back and forth, like, oh, we know you need to do this. And it's like, well, that's going to take another 4 weeks. 4-6 weeks to get the product. It's like, just do it the way that you said to do it. It's like, it wasn't just talking for the sake of talking. It's like, this is how we can achieve what you want to achieve in the time frame.
So it's architects going and finding either reference documents or speaking to someone, taking that time to speak to someone to get the outcome achieved, so that down the line...
it causes less hold-ups on site. Yeah. It causes less drama when you're trying to get pricing together. And then you also have a more clearer description so that you can actually go, well, contractor A, contractor B, contractor C have all allowed the exact same thing, because I've been very clear and explicit, so I can actually compare apples to apples. And now, instead of going, hey, then you can actually look at the dollar value and go, okay, this is where the dollar value sits, instead of ignoring all of those things and just looking solely at the dollar value.
Well, so I just, while you were talking there, I switched off for a second because I had a thought. The thought is that most of our hold-ups on site are RFIs, and we're so busy quoting projects that we don't have time while quoting the project to sit and wait for RFIs.
No,
because if we did that, we would be doing RFIs constantly. So we just go, all right, this is the closest we can achieve to that. This is the closest we can achieve to that. This is, and we will. And I know this is, as a business, we'll always make sure we aim on the higher side, because we don't want our builder to go in with an under. We'd rather give a credit back than have to go, and then they've got to hit up for a variation. So if the designer or the architect or I guess that's the designers and the architects, if they go and get the specification really clear, and I understand that it's not just roofing that they're doing. They're dealing with a heck of a lot. And so we get frustrated because we're constantly see the same thing over and over again. Yeah. The specification, getting those right or getting them really clear, and if they can't do it, put in there or comparison or approved similar product, so that when it gets to the time, we're not being held up RFIs, because we'll hit the RFIs, and how many builders sit down at the start of every job and work out how it's going to work? Not that many. They start and go, all right, let's get out of the ground. They deal with RFIs as they're running.
Yeah, it becomes the putting out fires type of scenario.
Well, that's how you build.
Whereas if it's all sort of dealt with at the start, and obviously, like you said, we're talking specifically about the roofing side of things, because that's what we deal with all the time. But I mean, if you were to go through the effort of making a very clear specification for all trades, and understand that's going to take a little bit longer, but it's not one of those. It's not always one of those things where it's 85% good now is good. You kind of need to have it more 95%.
Yeah. So if you're at 85%, you're going to spend a lot of time answering RFIs later.
Yeah.
When you're actually trying to get onto to new jobs and trying to do new projects. So if you're at 95, you're only going to spend that 5% later.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, Abraham Lincoln, didn't he say sharpen your axe for the first 7? If you've got 8 hours to cut down a tree, sharpen your axe for the first 7.5 and spend half an hour.
All right,
just get it. So Is there anything else in regard to specifications?
No, I think that kind of covers off my main sort of
Yeah.
things that I deal with on a constant basis that sort of hold me up. And I really feel like it kind of loses us a lot of work because we price for the high end of all of these things because have the experience of that doesn't work. It needs to be done this way, and
You're quoting to meet spec or exceed spec at least because the specs aren't
and
clear.
then no one reads the documents, and then they just go off the dollar value, and it's like, well, okay, cheers.
Yeah, and that's frustrating.
And then no one even, and the other problem is no one sort of comes back and going, hey, how come you've allowed this, or ask for an explanation to try and figure out what's going on, or hey, where can we scale back? Like, and you know, a defense is pretty good with that. Like, working on defense projects, you have to meet spec, and if you don't meet spec, you don't even get a look in.
Yeah.
And then once you've met spec, it's like, all right, cool. What can we do to sort of scale this back to try and achieve, like,
still trying to achieve the same result, the end goal.
Like, for example, there was a project down at Canungra. We want long line roofing on this roof. It's like, is anybody going to see this roof about from a couple of diggers that are just shooting on the range, or is it like something the public is going to see? Oh, it's just diggers on the range. Then you don't need to have some fancy roof cladding on there because it's uninteresting to them.
Yeah.
Whereas
again, a product that comes from interstate versus products which are locally.
Yeah. Even doing it in standing seam would have been really silly because
what's the point of spending all that money?
Diggers aren't going to care about this fact that this range building looks really cool. It's like, we're just here to
shoot things
or blow stuff up or learn whatever we're doing. Whereas if it's something that the public is going to see, you want it to be snazzy. You want it to look really awesome.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing of specifying versus budget, because if you look at the cost, the outcome. Okay, long line can go down to 1 degree, right? So can clip lock. Both Lysat products. One's 4.5 times the price of the other.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you can specify clip lock in a 0.48, make it a bit thicker. So essentially it's, again, architects have a very big job. Like, they go to university for 6 years, and then they but they go and junior in a firm for another 5 years.
Yeah.
And only a very, very small percentage. From Sean Lockyer, I heard him say, said a very small percentage of architects ever make it into a position, for example, like his. And Sean Lockyer is one of the most renowned architects in Brisbane, and we've been very lucky to work on a couple of his projects, and would love to work on future ones. So, it is what it is. However, we'd like to offer architects, if they wanted to just, hey, does this work or does this work? Pick up the phone. We would be absolutely rapt to give you our time to talk to you about how to do this and how to do that. Now, so pick the phone up, get in contact with Josh. You can leave comments, or you can go on our website, and there's a YouTube comments thing on there that you can jump on there, put your details in, and Josh will call you, or I'll call you, and discuss.
Just send us an RFI and
well, look, more than happy to send us the plans.
We'll help you achieve, like, and that, that's our sort of mantra, is like helping you achieve what you want to achieve, what you're looking to achieve, and we'll do it in the most economical way that we can. Yeah.
So what I've found, and the projects that I enjoy working on the most, and the projects that have the least hold-ups, the projects that have the least problems, are the ones where the architect, and for example, all right, so Johnny, we've got a great relationship with Johnny from our architecture. He goes, you know how I like things. You just make it happen. You know how I like things. So it's kind of in having a relationship with an architect that can state, like, this is my style. Just do it to my style and I'll be happy. That just goes, right, cool. We know what to do now. We can move forward. And if we're not quite sure, you can bounce it directly with the architect. So we don't even go through the builder. We just go straight to Johnny and say, hey, Johnny, what do you think here? Because we'll be working for multiple different builders. But the point being is, on projects where we have license to be able to design how to finish things, they just flow. They just and we get that end result that they're looking for, because we get that they're going for a certain style.
Yeah, that's it.
So, because we're constructing art, just like architects they're designing art, we're constructing it. We're trying to do it together.
That's it. All right, folks. We'll catch you in the next one.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. That's all I've got for today.
Is there anything else? Like, do we know what we're doing next?
Not yet.
We haven't planned it.
Haven't planned it. We've been a bit slack.
No, we've been busy, is what it is. We've been busy.
Managing all these projects and
Yep.
getting things done.
Awesome. You got some music to finish this?
Yeah.
or what?
Oh, it's just the same
It's the
song.
same one. I
just
thought
the
you
same
had some
song.
new.
No, I only, again, didn't have time to put another one on here.
Right.
So it's just the same one.
Very good. Well, thank
we'll
you, everyone.
We'll do the outro with the intro music.
Oh, lovely.
See you, folks.
Guys. Do I do my dance?
If you want.
Kaya, come here. Come here. Kaya. Come here. Up here.